Today we're going to be talking about the hot backup and failover scenario. So pretty hot topic. There seems to be a lot of interest about it, and I don't think we've had a webinar or a how-to video about this topic in a long time. So it's as good a time as any. If you're not aware of our timeline here at WIN-911, we are really excited to have our brand new product release with a new user interface, a new backend, and everything coming out next month. So we're shooting for June 21st for that release of WIN-911 2021. So things are going to change a little bit in the near future for the backup failover, not too much, but today we're going to be talking about the current version, right? So the version 4 that we have right now. We're going to go ahead and get started here. The first thing I want to do, just to get everybody engaged and kind of see who you are, is I'm going to throw out a poll, and you should see that pop up on your screen, and go ahead and just answer for me real quick. Very cool. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to close that out, and we'll get started here. So quick agenda. We're going to be talking about the WIN-911 failover theory, for lack of a better word. Just kind of wanted to go through where it came from and how we implemented it from the WIN-911 aspect. We'll go through the Standby and Activate.exe. Those are built into the product. They're automatically there when you install WIN-911. We'll talk about what they do and how to use them. Then I'm going to give you an example or two of what to put into a script or a macro or how you would use the Standby and Activate.exe on your deployment. And then we'll go through just a couple additional redundancy best practices at the end, hit you with some resources that are always available, and do a Q&A section as well at the end. All right, so from the WIN-911 side, this failover, and again, I just wanted to throw out where we stand on this and make this clear, because it's really something that the system designer is responsible for creating, right? They should be writing the script or the macro to automate a failover execution for the SCADA system, right? Typically, we have a 1-to-1 ratio with one WIN-911 system connected to one SCADA, right? So one iFix server or Factory Talk or InTouch, whatever you're using. And if you have a backup SCADA system, then you should have a backup WIN-911 system connected to that backup SCADA, right? So the WIN-911 failover really is about making sure you continue to get your notifications when there is a failure on the SCADA side. So that system designer should really be monitoring, the SCADA side. And when the SCADA side goes down, so I have an example here at the bottom. If SCADA A fails, then your script or macro should shut it down and should call on SCADA B to go active. And all you're doing is just piggybacking the WIN-911 standby or activate executables within your script to manage the WIN-911 A and B systems. So I just wanted to make that clear. You could fail over WIN-911 regardless of the SCADA, but there's really no point. And I just wanted to clear the air there first. This isn't something that we have available for, my SMS modem went down, I want to fail over my WIN-911 system. That's not what this is about, and that's not really something that we have available or functional or even possible that would be meaningful, because again, we have that one WIN-911 system to one SCADA system ratio. So the Standby and Activate executables, Standby.exe, so this is the applet that acts in a global manner, disables all WIN-911 monitoring data points from triggering. And you're not going to get any notifications. Everything is still going to kind of be running in the background. Log viewer will still, see the alarms, but the notification from dispatcher sending that out to a notification method is not going to happen. So it is still running. It is still, services are on. Log viewer is going to see it, but in standby mode, you're not going to be sent notifications. And conversely, the Activate.exe, so this restores WIN-911 from the standby mode, and it enables all of the notifiers. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. When something fails, you want to throw it in standby, run that, and everything is in standby, no more notifications, and the second system should have the Activate.exe ran to take it out of standby and put it in active mode. And this is just an example here, and I'll show you the KB article where this is listed right there in the KB article. but very basic example to show you really how simple this can be. So if active node equals 1, right? So if this active node is, that's just a placeholder, by the way. If active node is on, then run, and then this is the path to activate.exe. Else, run, and then the path to standby.exe, right? So this is where active node is some flag that changes in your system when a failover occurs. So this is from your primary to secondary SCADA or HMI system, right? So if the active node is 1, and that means it's on and it's good and it's working and it's active, then run activate.exe. And that doesn't do anything. If it's already active, it just runs that and it's already active. So this would be constantly being monitored on your SCADA system. If active node is on, activate.exe is ran. Now, if active node equals 0 and it's down or there's an issue and you get a value that tells you there's a problem, this would go to the else statement and it would say, okay, run standby.exe. Right, so you can kind of see, very simple from our end, the SCADA side should see it that itself, it's active, we're running activate, we're good. If there's a problem and you get a different value that you can read from that macro, from that script that tells you there's a problem, then the else command would run standby on the local machine. And the next step here is, in your script, you would call upon your secondary system, your backup iFix or your backup OPC server or whatever you're running to go turn on and be the active SCADA. And piggybacked on top of that command to turn the second SCADA on would be, hey, also run this activate.exe on that secondary system, and it could run the same thing. So that's going to be active. Is active node equal 1? That would now be true on SCADA B, and it's just going to continually sit here and run through this and make sure it's active. Whenever there's a problem, it goes to the else statement and runs the standby. And so we're gonna go through this KB article. This is the one I was mentioning earlier, but if you go to our website and go to the support tab, knowledge base hot backup, that's the word you would search. Just search in the knowledge base bar hot backup. You'll see a knowledge base article we've had up there for quite a while now, and it has some steps for you to walk through. But the important things I wanted to point out in the script or in the article is that we do have an example script that our product manager Stephen Rivas has written. He wrote this a while ago. I'm not sure exactly when he wrote it, but this is a link to download this VB script. And there's a note here that we're not liable for this. You should really kind of know what you're doing on your own system, or at least the system integrator or designer of the system should be able to tweak things for your environment. So don't just take this as it's going to be a one script fits all scenario, but it's an example, and it's a pretty good one actually, of how you can monitor WIN-911 on its own and not be 100% dependent on the SCADA calling out these executables. When you go to the knowledge base and you open up the article, there's this line with the instructions link, and that downloads the folder you can see at the bottom here, WIN-911 failover.zip. This is where we're gonna go through. I wanted to put the screenshots in here so that when we have this video posted to YouTube and to our website, you can go through and pause the screen here or take screenshots. It's going to be in the presentation anyway if you want to download that after it's posted as well. But this is just the step-by-step instructions for how to make the scheduled task. All right, so this is just task scheduler, and we're creating a task in here. We're going to go through this together, but here's the screenshots. So this is pretty simple. We're giving it a name and run whether the user is logged on or not, and run with the highest privileges. And you can see the new trigger is just begin the task at startup. We can delay it for a minute or whatever you need to delay it for in your environment, and check the box for enabled. Next step here is you're going to specify what actions this task will perform. So this is just doing start a program. And you're going to be calling on the Windows built-in WScript executable, and the argument is going to be the path to this WIN-911 failover script that I'm about to show you. So pretty simple. We're just calling on the script, and the condition here is basically completely empty. You don't have to put anything in the conditions except wake the computer to run the task in case the computer's asleep. And the final step here is the settings tab, allow the task to be run on demand, run the task as soon as possible after a scheduled start is missed. And if the task fails, restart every minute. So if you're not familiar with Task Scheduler, this is pretty simple, and we'll walk through it together. If you are familiar, you see how basic of an example this is. So we're going to go ahead and run through that right now. Go to our website, WIN-911.com. On the support tab, knowledge base, and you can put in hot backup. Here's the link to the article. Let me make this a little bigger. And here's the procedure. This is basically just telling you to, install your WIN-911, license them, copy your primary config over to the secondary machine, right? And there's documentation on that. We're not going to get into that. This is not a how to do a SQL backup webinar, but essentially that's all you're doing is backing up the SQL databases on one system and syncing them over to the other system. So you have two WIN-911 installs. They're both in sync, both have the same config. And then it's going through what Activate.exe does and what Standby.exe does, like we just went through. And you can edit those config URLs to point to the secondary WIN-911 system. So this is for, if WIN-911 system A needs to go into standby, it can also be configured to point at the secondary system by host name or by IP address and call upon it to activate. And I'll show you that config file here shortly as well. And then this is the line here from the PowerPoint. So you have the instructions link right here that'll download a zip folder. Zip file here, go to downloads. So it'll look like this, WIN-911 failover.zip, and you can extract that. And here's the WIN-911 failover.bbs. So once you have that script, there's a little more, information, disclaimer, and informational text here, just saying that, now that it's up and running, it's important to keep the two configurations the same. And the easiest way to do this is to open two browser tabs, right? So one on your primary, one on your secondary, and make sure you just make the same changes that you make on the first one, the second one. If you don't do that, what a lot of customers do is like a monthly or weekly or bi-monthly, whatever you guys need to do, backup and restore of the SQL databases. So once a month, you can just back up primary where you make all your changes and just make sure you restore those to the secondary so everything's in sync there. If you go down, here's the example, right? And I put this in the slide as well. Pretty basic. If active node is 1, run activate, else run standby. And that's about all I wanted to show you in the article. So now we're going to go into the script and how to set up this scheduled task. And we're going to go ahead and just start by doing task scheduler. So if you've never done this before, again, all those screenshots are going to be saved. They're going to be in the YouTube video, as well as the slides will be posted. So here in Task Scheduler, you can just do create task. You can give this a name. You can give it a description if you'd like. And first radio button is run whether the user is logged on or not, and run with the highest privileges. You can make this hidden as well, and run this for your operating system that you're currently on. You go to the triggers, create new, and this is just going to be at startup is begin the task. If you want to delay this, in the example for 1 minute, this is just saying that it'll give it a minute until it starts the task. So if your machine is a little bit slower, it's not as powerful, you might want to delay it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever works in your scenario, but not super important as long as everything is up and running before this is kicked off. That's the main part. Okay, so that's it for the delay, and just make sure that's enabled and click OK there. Then you go to Actions, New, and Start a Program is typically the first thing that's in here, and you want to keep it as that. Click on this Browse button, and this takes you directly to the Windows System 32 folder. And in here, you can just type WScript, and this is the WScript executable. Just click OK or open on that, and that'll throw in that path. And then the add argument here. So when you downloaded that link from the KB, it has the failover script built into it in that zip folder. So I have it just pulled here to the desktop, and in the add arguments, that's where you want to just put the full path to this execute or to this VB script. So you can just copy it from the properties here. It's in users, Jeremiah, desktop, and then just do slash and the name of it.
Does that come from the zip file or the zip folder you were showing us?
Yeah, exactly.
WScript.exe?
Yeah, let me pull that
Okay.
up again. So when you download it and you extract it, it comes right here from that failover folder.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So it'll look like this, .zip at first, you just right click, extract all, then it'll go to a regular folder and you can pull this over and drop it on your machine. So then I'm just gonna put this in quotes for the argument. And again, all we're doing is putting the full path to where this is. So if this is not on your desktop, don't do this, right? Don't put the desktop path that I have. If it's in some other directory, it should show you right here in the location of where this folder is, right? So this is on your downloads. You would put it to the downloads link wherever this file is sitting. It just happens to be on my desktop. So that's it. You're going to throw that in for the add argument and click OK. And conditions tab, you can, I would just uncheck this regarding, the power, if it's on battery or AC, and just do wake the computer. And settings, I would uncheck the bottom two and just do allow the task to be run on demand, run the task as soon as possible after scheduled start is missed. And if the task fails, restart every minute, attempts to restart 3 times. You could bump that up to as many times as you want, but if it's not starting after 3 times, you might have another problem. So, and again, this is not, this is not 100% how you have to do things. This is the disclaimer from the beginning of this webinar. This is just an example. What works best for your system and your environment and how you want to set things up. That's really the importance I want to drive home here. And it's going to ask you for the password for your account. And this is due to the fact that we put in that run regardless of whatever user is logged in, and you want to make sure you do that and that you're doing this as an admin account, because if somebody logs in as some lowly non-permissions having user and this is trying to run, it's not going to have the permissions. So that's the importance of run whether the user is logged on or not, and it'll take those credentials. So there we go. There's the task, and it's scheduled to run at startup every time, and then you can run this and it'll just be running. It'll be running forever. Now what is it doing? That's where we need to break out into some VB script text. And actually I'm going to do this on my other machine where I have Notepad++, because there's a lot going on in this VB script, and we're not going to cover every single line of it, but I just want to show you some of the functionality that Stephen Rivas had built into this. So this is the script's introduction. We have some text here for setting this up and some different options, right? So the purpose of the script is to monitor the runtime status of the WIN-911 system. Typically a primary WIN-911 system, the primary secondary setup. In a primary secondary WIN-911 setup, the primary system runs in active mode. So that means it receives alarms, sends notifications, and then the secondary runs in standby. So that receives the alarms, but it does not send the notifications. Those are suppressed. When the primary WIN-911 system is unavailable, you need to place the secondary WIN-911 in active mode. Script continuously checks the primary WIN-911 for pinging its HTTP endpoint. So if either if it gets a no or an error is received, there's not a clear answer to the ping of the HTTP endpoint, then the script runs Activate.exe to activate the secondary system. You can run this script with WScript, which is located there. We just went through that. We recommend using Windows Task Scheduler to launch this. The delay 5 minutes should be sufficient. So it's just talking about the delay and startup we just went through. The script will loop repeatedly until there is a failure. After a failure occurs on the primary, the secondary WIN-911 will be placed into active mode and the script will terminate. After a failure, a manual reset of the primary WIN-911 will need to be performed. So once the primary WIN-911 is back online and in active mode, you can restart the script. Right, so pretty basic here. We're not doing anything crazy. We're constantly pinging the dispatcher, or really any. We'll get into, you can do any of the endpoints, right? We have dispatcher reporting, email, SMS, voice, OPC, all, any of these. They have an HTTP endpoint, and we want to ping it and make sure it responds. And if we have an issue getting an answer back, that means it's probably down, and we're telling it to go to standby. And we're activating that secondary system with the Activate.exe. Now, when that happens, I'm sure somebody should be aware, whether from the SCADA failing or getting the notifications from the other WIN-911 system if there's any changes as far as the host it's coming from, right? Somebody should notice that the primary went down at some point and that the secondary has taken over, and it's going to be running. It's going to be giving you notifications. Everything's good and happy. And when you go back to fix the problem, right? This is the after a failure manual reset of the primary WIN-911 will need to be performed. So once you fix the problem, you just want to restart WIN-911 here and then start the script again. Pull rate 60 seconds. System name, this is the remote WIN-911 host name. So this is just telling you that if you need to set the system, or you need to set the system name to the host name or IP address of the primary system. And if you are using a static IP address, we recommend using the IP just so there's no DNS or host name resolution issues, right? IP address is always going to be a little bit more reliable there. So that's where you'll, in these quotes, just change it to the host name or IP, preferably of the primary system. This is telling you can choose which modules you want to monitor. If the monitor is unavailable, failover will occur though. So you set all of these to true and you don't have one of these, right? That's probably not a good idea. It's going to try to find something that's not there and you're going to have a failover. So you could just get away with just dispatcher is true and everything else is false. You could do that. But if you want to monitor other runtimes, that's why these options are in here. If your SMS goes down, I wouldn't say that would be something you want to fail over completely for, because your SCADA is probably still good and everything else is still good. You want to just troubleshoot what's going on with your SMS side. So dispatcher is really the main one that I would focus on here. Set the value of each module to true if you would like to monitor it, and false if you do not. Pretty straightforward there. And I'm not a developer and I'm not a coder, so I'm not going to get into exactly how all of this works. But if you have specifics about the questions or how you could change this or edit this, I'm sure we can get some email sent to Steven Rivas and get some more info on it. But basically, this is going in through create an object, if enable logging, then checks if a log exists. If not, it creates a log here, write message to a log. Dispatcher module, this is looking for this link, which is the HTTP link for the module information, right? Again, you don't really have to know exactly how all this is working, but this is the HTTP link that it's trying to ping against. And these are all the different modules, right, from the list above. And then we're doing start, and it's checking the status based on that ping, checking dispatcher. This is kind of the logic that is all about, hey, if we don't get the response, then there's a failure, and it's going to call upon the script at the end to run the Activate.exe on the other system. I don't know if there's anything else relevant. Yes, you can see here the private function, shell script to create object here, and this is just direct link to the Activate.exe. And the other one, obviously, direct link to the Standby.exe.
The question I have is, do you Does this script use the isActive.exe at all? Or do you guys have an example of where you're using isActive.exe?
Yeah, so this does not use the isActive. This is just doing a ping directly to the HTTP module, basically. So if you, I guess, let me show you guys that real quick, because for anybody that is interested that's watching that knows what's going on right now, you'll probably want to see this. So when you go into the default website of IIS, you can expand this, and as you should know, if you're not brand new to WIN-911, we have the web page that is our user interface, right? This is an Internet Explorer page, and in the default web page, we have all of our modules, as you can see. Now, we click on Dispatcher, and let me just make sure directory browsing is enabled, and we can browse to this. And you can see this is just an HTTP call to localhost. We're serving up a web page. And this is the module information.svc. And if we go back to the script, wherever I had that, where did he list that? Right up here, we're looking at win911.dispatcher/module information.svc. So we're literally just doing a ping against this, and this is how it should come back when you open it, right? This is good. This gives information back. Here's the C#, Visual Basic. This is a good response. If this comes back with an HTTP error, right, which is one of those big yellow and red 401 or 400 unavailable or 404 not found, right? One of those errors, that's when the script would fail over. So it's not doing anything with isActive, it's just looking against the HTTP requests here. And all of these have their own, response that it would give. And so if this script does not touch the isActive, to answer your question, and what he's referring to, for anybody else that doesn't know, is if we open up our File Explorer, go down to the WIN-911 folder, or in WIN-911 software, WIN-911 enterprise, there is a Standby.activate folder. And this is where the Activate.exe, the Standby.exe, these are where they're held, right? And we have a config file for these as well. And there's also this isActive. Well, what does that do? Again, if you in your environment want to set this up to just run off of isActive, it's as simple as just running that and taking the output and writing your own script to either run Activate from that or run Standby from that. So as an example, let's take this path and copy it. So we're down into the Standby.activate folder. We open up command prompt, and we'll do cd, change to that directory. So now we're in the Standby.activate directory here. And you can do dir to show there's our activate, there's our isActive, there's our standby. We just run isActive, you're going to get an answer that's either active, standby, or unknown. Mine's probably going to be unknown. Yeah, so unknown means there's a problem with your license. This is because I'm on my demo system and my license is probably broken. But we can actually prove that here. If you open up log viewer, log viewer should show active when it's good. It'll show unknown standby status when there's a problem with the license. Yep, and there we go, unknown standby status. You can also see that in the user interface. If you go to system, standby active, it should show unknown. There you go, unknown. So that's exactly what the executable isActive is doing. It's calling upon, hey, is this active? What's the current status? And we have unknown. So if this was not in an unknown status, say this was active, and actually let me see if I have a demo extension. I can show you this as well. And just bear with me here a couple minutes. I'm going to restart my services. Hopefully this will bring it back to an active state and not unknown. But basically where we're headed with this is you could use that isActive and just put that into a super basic script to run it. And based on the outcome, whatever text is shown, if this is active, then you know you're good. You don't have to do anything. But in your script, you would say, okay, well, run is active.exe. If this comes back as unknown or standby, then run activate.exe. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, if that's how you use it, whoever was making that comment earlier, but.
Yeah, I haven't used it yet. I was just interested in trying to do some self-healing, and I needed feedback, so that's what I was
for sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I might have kind of skipped over is active if you didn't, but I'm glad you brought that up. So now you can see in the log viewer we have the active state because I dropped in a new demo license. So now if I were to run is active, it comes back with the word active. So that's, kind of how you could use it if you wanted. I'm not your script builder, right? I don't really know how you guys want to put this into a script, but if you just take this text, if this equals active, you're good. If it equals unknown or it's in standby, you can just say, okay, well then run activate.exe. It could be that simple. And then same thing with the config files here, right? So if we go back to the directory itself and out of the command prompt, we have the config file for activate.exe, the config file for standby, as well as is active. If you wanted to check what a different system is currently, so you can make your script say, hey, what is WIN-911 system B doing right now? You can just edit this config file in a notepad. And by default, here's your link. It's just looking at localhost. It's looking at itself, right? You just change this to the IP address of your other system, whatever it is. Now, I don't have a second VM running because my laptop would blow up, but if you had your second system, you would throw in the IP or the host name here, and it's going to run against that other machine, and it'll tell you that it is active, or it is in standby, or it is unknown. So pretty simple. You just change that link, right? And then you can do that for all of them. These are all pretty much the same exact text in here. For the activate, here's your local host. You would change that. So if you wanted to activate SCADA B from SCADA A, you would put in the host name or the IP address right here in place of localhost. It would run activate over on that other machine. Now it's active. At the same time, you'd want to make sure that you run standby here locally so that they're not both active, right? If they're both active, then you're getting duplicate notifications doubled up on everything. Okay. So hopefully, if we're going to go into a Q&A section, if you have any questions about this, please just, jot them down, remember them. We're almost done. But that kind of explains the VB script, how to create the scheduled task that's just going to be running all the time, and the activate is active and standby executables and how you can use those. Really, however you want to. There is no best way. So. And the command line, again, you just change directory down to the WIN-911 folder for that standby activate folder, and then you can just run as active. And now, just to show you an example, if I wanted to put everything in standby, just run standby.exe, dispatchers now set to standby. Now I'm not going to get notifications. Then I run is active. It says, nope, you're in standby. I'm like, okay, well, I want to activate. There you go. So that's what we provide. That's really how simple it can be. It can get as crazy as you want to make it with the SCADA involved and failover macros and whatnot. All right, so one other quick note here. We'll finish this up. On the topic of just additional redundancy best practices, this is on one WIN-911 system here. You just want to make sure you utilize more than one notification method, right? So this has nothing to do with the failover scripting or the second system, but in general, for redundancy, you have the option to use email, SMS, voice calls, and the mobile app. So any combination of these on the same tactic, that call out list of your people, that's going to prevent a single point of failure. So don't just use email, because if your SMTP server goes down, then everyone's missing out on notifications. Don't just use voice, because if your phone line goes down or your SIP trunk goes down, then you're screwed there too, right? So use email and voice, or SMS and mobile, or any combination of these to make sure that if something is a problem with one of those, you still have the secondary method available. And you can create your tactic to have, delay betweens, right, and change methods. Everybody gets an email, then wait 5 minutes, and then everybody gets a phone call. However you want to do that, but just use more than one. That's what I would recommend. All right, so some quick resources here for anything else you guys might run into, all on our website. If you go to resources, documentation, bunch of documents out there, resources, webinars, that's where all the webinars past and this one will always be posted to that same page. I can show you guys that. Resources, how-to videos, and then I showed you support knowledge base. You can search that for anything that you want. We have a bunch of articles out there for you. And then if you're on support with us, support, also start a support case there. The webinar is on deck, new user training. So on the left side here, you can see, this is our webinars page straight from our website. This is today's webinar. And we have a very exciting one next month. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, if you missed it, we are releasing our brand new product, major overhaul, new user interface. We're getting away from the Internet Explorer page. No more IIS, no more nonsense talking with the services between the IIS modules and permissions and all those issues that we have with the Internet Explorer-based UIs. And simplified a lot of things, made it look and feel much smoother, easier to configure. Lots of really, really incredible changes coming. So that is our next major webinar coming up next month for our new product, WIN-911 2021, coming June 21st. That's our release date, so be excited about that. We also have the new user trainings on the right side of our webinars page. See an example here. We're doing this twice a month. One of my engineers on my team, Chris Cave, he's done a fantastic job with this. Even if you've been around WIN-911 for a while, I would highly recommend joining these. He does a different SCADA every time typically and shows you pretty much everything you need to know about the WIN-911 side, how to set it up, how to configure it, connecting to the SCADA, how to set up your tactics, your strategies, your call out list, your contacts, everything. So it's really, really good information. Definitely recommend it. And let's get into a Q&A. So feel free to unmute yourself, ask away, throw it in the questions section, and I can try to read through those as well. But anything you might want to ask, now's the time. Let's see if there's anybody that popped into the questions section. All right, Naeem, please clarify again if one WIN-911A has issue, WIN-911B will be online and active. So we need to do forced failover SCADA 2. I'm not sure I completely understand, but to go over this again, if there's an issue on WIN-911A, but your SCADA is still good, failing over to WIN-911B really wouldn't be a solution because that secondary SCADA that WIN-911B is attached to should not be active, right? I mean, if it is, that's a different story, but typically we would be doing the failover based on the SCADA's activity. So if your iFix A, for example, has a problem, WIN-911 is installed where that machine is running iFix. iFix A goes down, your script that you have monitoring iFix should also just piggyback the Standby.exe on the local WIN-911, right? Just one line, run that standby. And on your secondary iFix, when it's called to be active, piggyback that Activate.exe for its local WIN-911, and it will turn that on. So that's what I meant by the SCADA system being the main driver of that. Brady says, are there plans in the future upgrades to provide system synchronization to where WIN-911 can handle its own failover without SCADA scripting? Yeah, so that's kind of the script that I showed you today, right? So that is the script that is going to be in your task scheduler, and it's going to be monitoring itself. And regardless of SCADA even existing or not, or whatever the current state is, if there's a problem with the local WIN-911, the dispatcher doesn't respond to that HTTP ping, then it'll fail over itself and call the Activate on your secondary. Now, as far as like a full-on autonomous system that's synchronized by itself, we're not there yet. I mean, really, we need to get the SQL automation link set up first, in my opinion. We got to get an actual backup and restore procedure that's not manually back up these databases on WIN-911A and manually restore them on WIN-911B. I'd love to get SQL synchronized and get those databases to where you change it on one, it changes it on both. And then it would be pretty easy from there to make a failover scenario pretty autonomous as well. But we're not there yet, Brady, sorry. We're working on it though. Matt Grazier, when will the new desktop version be out? Next month. That's our release, June 21st. So very exciting. Michael Stewart, we have 5 active nodes. Do we need 5 scripts?
I can't remember if I didn't set up the connections. I don't know if there's one connection to each active node, and then, or if it's just one connection to all nodes.
Yeah, sure. So do you have 5 different WIN-911 systems and 5 different SCADAs? Is that how it's set up?
1 WIN-911 and 5 SCADAs.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you have the different nodes within WIN-911 with the node licenses.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so that would be one script, because that would all actually be on the SCADA side, because you only have one WIN-911 system, so there is no failover to another WIN-911 system in this scenario. You have one WIN-911 box that is monitoring all those nodes, right? You'd need a full second WIN-911 install license on a different machine to do a failover between WIN-911 to WIN-911. So your monitoring of nodes would all be within your own SCADA side, and WIN-911 is constantly listening for all of those at the same time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We need a WIN-911 backup license for this to work, correct? Yes, sir, Tony. You're gonna need the hot backup license, which is basically, it's a full-on WIN-911 install, regular license, and then you have that hot backup license for the second system, which is cheaper than just buying a full second WIN-911 system outright. Windows 2021 non-HTML interface available. Yep, so that's June 21st. That's our release date, coming next month. Thank you guys so much for joining. I love doing these, and hopefully it helped you. I really hope it did. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Naeem. Appreciate it. Corey, thank you. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.